I love this song because I love that it talks about, some people that made some really powerhouse changes with what they did. But I also think there's the invitation for us to be the change we wish to see, to be the blessing for others in our lives. And so here we go. First part's easy. Ha, 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 ha. Repeat that. Ha, 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 ha. One little boy in Africa, he put a face on AIDS, told his story to the world till he died. And these are the words he said. He said, do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can. Ha, 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 ha. Ha, 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 ha. Holy Mother from India, helping the sick and the poor. Somebody asked, why do you do these things? She said, this is what I came here for. She said, do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Let's do that again. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. This is the gift they gave to us, to share wherever we go. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Now I understand what they wanted us to know. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can. One little boy in Africa, do all you can. Holy Mother from India, do all you can. One more. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Do all you can. We'll do the chorus one more time. You ready? Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can.
So today our lesson, letting go of worry, is the Lenten message.
Wow, that was
We're going to be reminded of some things that we already know. And I thought that really is the nature of spiritual truth. That the truth is, we already know deep in our heart and our soul, and sometimes we forget or we need to be reminded. And the nature of spiritual truth is that it transcends boundaries. You know, it's not just for one group or whatever your religion or whatever you call yourself or however you practice, or that it transcends cultural and faith traditions. Spiritual truth is spiritual truth. And so I have here a couple of things. Anybody know what this is? Braided sweetgrass. And I've had them for a while, so the fragrance isn't quite as strong as some when you get them fresh. But one that I'm going to talk about a little bit later in our talk. says that when you breathe in its scent, you start to remember things you didn't know you had forgotten. You start to remember. So I wanted to pass this around and give you each a chance to we used to do that with our prayer shawls, but to feel it, touch it, breathe it in. Even if you can't quite smell it, but it has a very strong, beautiful fragrance. So, as I said, spiritual food is something we kind of already know, but we often forget that we know. And, and maybe that's why the Bible, a lot of things are repeated in the Bible over and over and over again. A different story, maybe a different way of saying things.
So I don't want to go too much on it.
And that's true for our message today about don't worry, don't worry, be happy. In fact, the Lent booklet says that the message, fear not, it actually appears in the Bible at least 365 times. That's enough for one day of the year. Remember once a day at least. And I guess when it's a leap year, that means you get one day off. On February 29th, you can just worry as much as you want. Just let it all out, get it out of your system. In fact, I even heard somebody say that, 90% of the stuff we worry about doesn't really happen. So does that prove that worrying works? You just keep worrying about it, then why? Well, I don't think so. That wasn't really what the point is. And that's not what Jesus said either, that he said it many times in many ways. Don't worry, trust, go. And one of the wonderful places where this appears is in what's called the field, lilies of the field parable. I think that's this word. Yeah. And okay. So in the lilies of the field parable, he says, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life. Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do that very little thing, then why do you worry about the rest? Because worrying really helps. And, so you might think, well, what is the key to worrying? How do we if we want to letting go of worrying, what helps for that? I know Karen's line, just get over it. Well, sometimes stuff happens, we have to have our feelings, but what else? I sent an email to somebody yesterday about something, and they responded, no worries. Let it go, it's okay. Hear it?
Having faith in God.
Having faith in God. Yeah.
Think of something to be grateful for.
Thinking of something to be grateful for. It shifts your energy, lifts your vibration. Trust.
Have faith in yourself.
Having faith in yourself.
Being grateful.
Being grateful. Maybe being part of a spiritual community, having people around you to encourage you, to remind you. So the daily word, the Lent booklet says that basically the key is trust. That Jesus says it's trust. And I would say trust and grace. I think what does trust look like? Trust, I don't believe that there's a God or a power outside of ourselves that creates or brings to us unwanted circumstances. But stuff happens, people get medical diagnoses, or we have health challenges or financial challenges. And I feel like it's in those moments, when it feels like we're really discouraged, or how is this going to work out? But it's in those moments that we have the opportunity to discover the power of trust and faith in our lives, to kind of lean into trusting that somehow there is a greater power. Something from deep within me will arise to help me get through this difficult circumstance. And now this is where I'm going to have to go back. I took some of the quotes out of order. But, one of the passages that they reference in the Lent booklet is Jesus talking to the disciples, and things look pretty bad. He's telling them that the temple is going to be destroyed. The temple in Jerusalem is going to be destroyed, and the disciples are going to face a lot of persecution. In a way, you might say he's kind of saying the end of the world as you know it is going to happen. Well, what does he say? He says that when they bring you to trial and hand you over, do not worry beforehand about what you are to say. But say whatever is given to you at that time, for it is not you who speak, but the Holy Spirit. And so I thought, when they bring you to trial and hand you over, if you think about that metaphysically, I don't know about you, but sometimes life is trying. We feel like we're going through an experience that's a trial. Not like a court trial, but like we're being tested. Our faith, we're being called to find something deeper within us. It's a trial for our spirit, a trial for our faith. How's this all going to work out? Just praying for peace. And so whenever things, when they bring you to trial, it's when some circumstance in our life or the world arises that would be a cause for us to think, oh, I'm worried about this. I can't help but now worry about someone I love that's going through a painful time. Well, when things like that come up, what is helpful, I think, is finding a way to relate to the experience that is different, to not see it as against us, but to see it as an evolutionary driver that is pointing us to something within ourselves that will help us to discover a better way. I feel like that's what church and organized religion and the unity movement, our church is experiencing right now. There's some discomfort around declining attendance and declining revenue. And how do we, rather than say, oh, we just got to get back to the good old days, how do we transcend and include to see this as an evolutionary driver that's calling us forward to create a new form, a new way of practicing our spiritual principles, a new way of talking about God and connecting with people where they're at. I was reading in a very traditional Christian magazine, Christianity Today, where they were talking about re-articulating our calling in a way that is calling. God's calling now. Maybe this is re-articulating our calling in a way that is continuous with our past, yet creative for our future. So I think that's what trials invite us into, is continuous with our past, yet creative for our future. Hospice in what needs to be released, and midwife in what is going to be born. So I think that's what trust looks like, is don't worry beforehand about what to say, but whatever is given to you in the moment, it's not for you to speak, but to trust that the Holy Spirit will give you what to say, or how to be a comfort to someone else that's going through something, how to reassure yourself. So that's the answer when you worry. So, letting go, trust, but then grace. Our daily word says that grace is the presence of God made manifest. It's a little bit out of order. It's not Christie's all the time. But grace is the presence of God made manifest. And it's because God is not a person or a being or something we can see, but God is the presence that is ever present and all present. Eric Butterworth puts it this way. In its most complete sense, God is the allness in which I exist and you exist as the eachness. And so we need specific things that we can see. Oh, that's the presence of God. It's all those things the daily word talked about. Rhythm and balance of the natural world. Beauty of a sunrise, or sweet gentle sweet people in our lives and in the world that we should grace is stuff that happens, unexpected kindness, serendipity, forgiveness, the assurance deep within our soul. That part of us that says, I can just take a deep breath, and somehow I trust that the Holy Spirit's going to give me the right words or give me a new thought about how to think of this. See this as an evolutionary driver rather than something bad that's happening. And it's knowing that I am loved, treasured, that each of us are. So in the lilies of the field parable, and in many other times, Jesus also points to nature. He says, nature is there to remind us of the nature of God. So this is where we can go back now. He says, consider the ravens, or consider the birds. They don't sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. Now there's one line that I'm having a little trouble with. He says, how much more valuable you are than the birds. I don't know, Elaine. I'm not sure I agree with that. We're all equal valuable. Birds are valuable too. Nature is. But the point is that we need to look to nature to remind us about the nature of God. And then he says, lilies of the field. Oh my God, how beautiful is the field. Solomon in all his splendor. Who could have the most expensive and fancy and gold-studded clothes was never dressed as beautifully as the lilies in the field. So Jesus is pointing us toward the natural abundance that is all around us. And he's inviting us to realize that we're part of that. That we move, when we realize that, we move into alignment with the flow of creation. And we're like all the other birds and animals, and they just accept us unquestionably. So, last month we focused on Black History Month, and I thought, this is Women's History Month, and this is an opportunity to highlight some women who are making a real difference in the world. And so I wanted to introduce you to someone whose name is Robin Wall Kimmerer. And I know that some of you know her, know of her, and she to me is such a great example of all of us, looking to nature to find God, to find the divine presence within each of us. And she's an indigenous woman, a member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. She has a PhD in botany. She's a college professor. She understands science and plants. She's a mother, decorated professor, and she weaves together Western science with indigenous wisdom and environmental knowledge and stories. And it happens that she lives outside of Syracuse, and she's going to be speaking in Buffalo on Tuesday at 6 o'clock at Canisius College. It's a free public lecture. The posters over on the wall there. But she's written, and several of us are going, so if you're interested. But she's written a lot of scientific articles, of course, and I found out just last year she received the MacArthur Genius Award, where they, anonymously select somebody who's really made an outstanding contribution and give them some funds to continue the work that they do. So I want to just tell you a little bit about her, but here are some quotes. She says it's a sign of respect and connection to learn the name of someone. It's like when a newcomer comes in here, I want to, hello, I'd like to be able to greet you when you come back the second time. I want to be able to say, hi, Judy, it's good to have you back. And it's a sign of disrespect to ignore. And yet the average American can name 100 corporate logos and only 10 plants. It's a surprise that we've accepted a political system that grants personhood to corporations and no status at all to wild rice and redwoods. Learning the names of plants and animals is a powerful way to support, powerful act to support them. When we learn their names and their gifts, it opens the door to reciprocity. Love that. So she's a PhD in botany, and she, and she says in native languages, the term for plants translates to those who take care of us. Raindrops. Maybe there's no such thing as rain. They're only raindrops, each with its own unique story. So she said in her book, she talks about teaching her college classes, and she was teaching a class in general ecology, and she was asking the students, how do they consider humans and our relationship to the environment? How many of you think that, that it's possible for humans to have a good relationship? She said almost everybody out of 200 students said humans and nature are not a good mix. But there isn't anything good that comes from our interaction with that. And she asked them to rate their knowledge of positive interactions between humans and the land. And nobody could think of anything. They've been studying about probably all the harmful environmental effects of human behavior. And she thought, how is it that in 20 years of education, these students could not think of any examples of beneficial relationships between people and the environment? So she said, they can't even imagine a beneficial relationship between species and others. So she thought, clearly these students have not been raised on the story of Sky Woman, the creation story of her people, and how that Sky Woman created a garden that was for the well-being of all. So the story of Sky Woman, their creation story, is that Sky Woman fell through the sky. She fell through a hole in the sky. But she didn't come empty-handed. That as she was coming down, she grabbed a tree of life that had fruits and nuts and seeds for all kinds of plants. And when she came to the ground, she scattered all these plants around and seeds. And she carefully tested each one until the ground turned from brown to green. And in these stories, she says that for her native people, sweetgrass was the very first to grow on the earth. And its fragrance is a sweet memory of Sky Woman's hand coming down to earth. And when she is honored as one of the 4 sacred plants. But she says braiding sweetgrass, when Native Americans take the strands and braid it together, it's like braiding the flowing hair of Mother Earth. And it's giving us an opportunity to give our loving attention and our care for the beauty and the well-being, and express our gratitude for the well-being that the earth has provided for us. And the children in her tradition grow up hearing the story of Sky Woman from birth, so that they know deep in their bones their responsibility as human beings. And so Robin, in her book, uses this metaphor of braiding sweetgrass, weaving together indigenous knowledge, scientific knowledge, and personal stories. Both the story of herself, her personal stories as a Native American indigenous scientist, and all of this, as she says, in service to what matters most. She said, I could hand you a braid of sweetgrass, shiny, but it's not mine to give, it's not yours to take, it belongs to the world. So I offer in its place a braid of stories and to heal our relationship with him. And so I love the way she intertwines science and spirit and story, old stories and new stories that are medicine for our broken relationship with the earth. She refers to it as a pharmacopoeia of healing stories that allow us to imagine a different relationship with ourselves, amongst each other, and the land, that we be good medicine for each other. And so I thought about that can be our spiritual practice too, of intertwining spiritual wisdom and science and stories. You know, that I said fruit, spiritual fruit transcends boundaries. It's not exclusively for Christianity or Judaism or Islam or any spiritual wisdom, whatever the sacred scriptures, Bible or Quran or the Course in Miracles, Jesus' teaching, the stories we have, you know, don't worry. You know, if you're worried, you're looking in the wrong direction. So we can take that strand of wherever we draw our spiritual wisdom and insights. And science. To me, science is practical Christianity. That's what Charles Fillmore was saying. Try it. Find what works for you. We're testing and finding out what works. You know, we're getting back to primitive first century Christianity, the original teachings of Jesus, and not the institution of the church. We want it to be about your personal experience. And then stories. The third strand is stories, our own life stories. Sharing our stories, you know, for ourselves, to know our stories, to know our family stories, to know where we've come from, and to listen to the stories of others, to share our stories with, to honor everybody. You know, whoever walked through the door here today, bless you, has a story. Has many stories. The story of your life. There's a story about why you came this morning, or something that your soul is seeking. And so I think by looking to the example of nature, by using these three strands, we can replace our worried thoughts with possibility thoughts, with thoughts of peace and love and harmony, and bring ourselves back into alignment with nature. And so Jesus closes the lilies of the field parable of for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so now, the next little treat we have for you, a surprise, is for our meditation today. I've invited Dawn Lewandowski to lead our meditation, to give us an experience of mindfulness meditation. And she'll be teaching a class actually starting this Wednesday, before Wednesdays 3:30 to 5 at church, and then also a day-long retreat the first Saturday in April. But mindfulness is another way that we listen, that we allow God to speak to us, that we find where your treasure is.
Good morning. So I was listening to Mary talking about that you don't need to prepare ahead of time, you just let the Spirit talk, and here I have my little notes. But when I notice I'm nervous, I remember to get mindful and sink down into my body, that shift from the head to the heart that we talk about so much here. And in my life, mindfulness has been a gift of great proportions. I worked through a lot of trauma that I didn't really realize I had stored in my body. And over time, with mindfulness, I was able to integrate that. And also, I've learned to incline my mind toward joy, which is another gift of mindfulness. I brought these flowers today because I wanted to tell a story from the Buddha. The Buddha used to give lessons to his students, and they would listen and think, and what does it mean, and try to be good students. And one day he showed up and he did this. He had a lotus flower. The story I read said it had mud dripping off it and water, and he just stood there silently. And inside of the minds of the students, as you could imagine, they're thinking, what does this mean? What am I supposed to be understanding? What's happening here? What am I going to say when the Buddha asks me what I learned? And then one of the students broke into a big grin and laughed because he saw the flower. He took in the flower, and it touched his heart, and he smiled. And the Buddha turned and said, let me see if I gotta look up the name that I do need to look up. Mahakassapa has received the lesson today. And now, these days, neuroscience is catching up with the Buddha. There's a neuropsychologist named Rick Hansen, and he talks about how our bodies, for survival, were trained, our minds and our bodies, to survive. So when something dangerous is going on, it sticks to us. He uses the term like Velcro. So these things are sticking to us like Velcro, right? Oh, I gotta watch out for that, look out for that, look out for that. And then something nice happens, like we see a flower. And we might say, oh, that's a pretty flower, and then we walk away, and it slides off us like Teflon. So he uses that Velcro or Teflon. But there's something magic we can do with mindfulness. We can stop, we can pause, even just for 5 seconds. Notice the pleasant thing. Take it in to our awareness, into our bodies, into our hearts. And we're actually creating, they know now, new neural pathways. Today is actually my birthday. I'm 55 today. Not as young as the day I walked in this church in my early 20s when Laura was our minister. And I can still create a new neural pathway in my brain at 55. And you can too, no matter the age. So that is the beauty and the wonder of mindfulness. It's like treading a path. Which path are we going to tread? Are we treading, grudging and angry and concerned, or are we opening up, feeling that sunshine, pausing, just 5 seconds, 10 seconds. The longer and more intensely you take it into your body, the better, like you're laying down that track. You're opening up that neural pathway to accept that good. So, we all come here on Sunday mornings for what? This spiritual communion. We come here for some reason. There's something that we're getting here. And maybe we feel like, oh, it gets me through the week, right? But what if we could take it with us? I mean, I think we do. But if we're going to do a meditation to kind of absorb this place and this space and the beauty. And does anyone want to name something, like just something that touched you today, or that this space or this community?
Sweet grass, also sweet.
The smell of the sweet grass. After I passed it, I thought, oh, I didn't wait 5 seconds.
The smiles on the people who said hello to me.
The hellos, the smiles.
The power of the love that surrounds me.
This feeling of love we created, this magical community. Appreciation. There's people that are here that give so much to us, so many people, in so many ways. I'm looking at the artwork. I love that little deer over there.
I'm grateful that my 2 friends came today. Well, I have a lot of friends.
Yeah, so Vicky's here with 2 friends, and we love having new people join us. It's such a pleasure. Okay, so these are the things that not only do we want to experience them for a moment right now, but we want to kind of train them into our bodies, and that's what our meditation is going to be today. So, first thing, we do a little meditation. We do them here every week, so we're used to it. Go ahead and get yourself comfortable. Just settle into whatever posture is comfortable for you. And I'm going to invite the bell to sound. You can start by just making that shift from your head to your heart. Feeling your own body supported by the chair, the earth, your feet in contact with the floor. Just call to mind all the beauty that we have experienced here today. Take a moment to take that in. Take into your heart, into your being, sense of this community. The love, the friendliness, the dedication of our members. And the offerings of our minister. The smell of the braided sweetgrass. Take in the safety and the comfort and the joy that is unity of Buffalo. Storing that beauty in your body, your heart. Letting it invigorate every cell. As new neural pathways inclining us toward joy are strengthened and embraced. If any other thoughts or inclinations arise to distract us, we recognize that they are trying to keep us safe. We say thank you mentally, and then turn our attention back to the joy and safety of this community. We can be like the lilies of the field. I'm going to end this meditation with the sound of the bell and some words from Vietnamese Buddhist master Thich Nhat Hanh. Listen, listen, this wonderful sound brings me back to my true self. Thank you.
As we turn our attention to the intentions, the prayers in this box, the prayers that are on our hearts, let us first recall that we are already joined in prayer because we are all spiritual beings having a human experience. We are all blessed. We are all divine. And that love and that joy not only creates healing and suggests solutions for the prayers that we have, for the intentions that we have, but presents us with a grace, a blessing, and a result that can exceed even the intentions that we have on our hearts. Because the goal of prayer isn't to change God's mind about us, but for us to change our mind about God, the challenges we face, and to realize that through it all, we are all connected, we are all one, we are all blessed, we are all divine. And from that comes the truest healing that never ends. And so it is.
Prayer for protection.